Life flows like a deep, silent river, carrying with it the remnants of our dreams, our shadows, and the unexpected stones that ripple the surface of our daily peace. When you stand by the bank of this river, you might find yourself reaching out, trying to catch the water, trying to hold on to a single moment that felt beautiful, or perhaps trying to push away the debris that clutters your path. The struggle is often invisible, a quiet storm brewing within the heart, where the desire for things to be different than they are creates a heavy, lingering tension. Acceptance is not a sign of weakness, nor is it a white flag of surrender to a life of sorrow, but rather, it is the gentle opening of the hands, allowing the world to be exactly as it is in this very breath. When you stop fighting the reality of the present, you realize that much of your exhaustion comes not from the external events themselves, but from the internal resistance you maintain against them. Imagine a traveler walking through a dense forest, carrying a heavy stone that they believe is gold, only to find that it grows heavier with every step, straining their back and stealing their breath. Until that traveler stops, looks at the stone with clear eyes, and realizes it is just a common rock, they will continue to suffer under its weight, missing the song of the birds and the light filtering through the leaves. Peace begins the moment you decide to set the stone down, not because you have reached the end of the road, but because you choose to walk the rest of the way with a light heart and open shoulders. There was a time, during the days when the Buddha walked among the bamboo groves, when a young man came to him with a heart filled with bitter resentment toward his own family. This man felt that life had been unfair, that his kin had misunderstood his intentions, and that the shadows of the past were a cage from which he could never truly escape. He asked how he could find stillness when his mind was a battlefield of what-ifs and if-onlys, searching for a way to rewrite the chapters that had already been closed by time. The Buddha looked at him with a gaze that held the stillness of a mountain lake, and he spoke not of changing the past, but of changing the way the heart holds the memory of it. He explained that when we cling to our pain, we are like a man who has been struck by an arrow, but instead of seeking help, he spends his time wondering who shot it, what wood the arrow is made of, and why the wind blew it in his direction. By the time he finds the answers to these questions, the poison has already seeped deep into his veins, not because the wound was fatal, but because he refused to acknowledge the reality of the arrow itself. Acceptance is the act of tending to the wound immediately, without blame, without anger, and without the need for the world to apologize for the wind that brought the arrow. You may feel that accepting a difficult situation means you are agreeing with it or that you are happy about the pain, but in truth, it is simply acknowledging that the situation exists. It is like looking at a rainy sky and saying, "Yes, it is raining," rather than shouting at the clouds and demanding the sun to appear before its time. When you accept the rain, you find your umbrella, you find the warmth of your home, and you find a way to listen to the rhythmic music of the drops hitting the roof. When you fight the rain, you stand in the storm, drenched and shivering, losing your voice to the thunder, and your peace to the frustration of a clouded sky. Every person you meet is carrying a silent burden, a secret grief, or a fear that keeps them awake in the quiet hours of the midnight air, yet we often feel we are the only ones struggling. We compare our internal chaos with the external composure of others, forgetting that every heart has its own seasons of winter and its own slow, gradual arrival of spring. There is a beautiful story of a woman who lived in a village where the houses were small and the gardens were filled with fragrant jasmine, yet she could only see the weeds that grew along her fence. She spent her days pulling them out, cursing the soil, and wondering why her neighbors seemed to have such effortless beauty while she had to labor so hard for a single bloom. One day, an elder passed by and noticed her frustration, pausing to watch as she tossed a handful of dirt into the air with a sigh of deep exhaustion. The elder asked her why she was so angry with the earth, for the earth does not choose what grows, it simply provides the nourishment for whatever seeds have been scattered by the wind. If you spend all your time hating the weeds, you will never have the energy to water the jasmine, and your garden will become a place of war instead of a place of rest. The woman realized that her resistance was the true weed, a shadow that blocked the sun from her soul, preventing her from seeing that the jasmine was already blooming, even amidst the wild grass. In your own life, there are moments of wild grass, moments where things feel messy, uncoordinated, and far from the perfection you have carefully mapped out in your mind. You might find that your career has taken a detour, your health has whispered a warning, or a relationship has shifted into a shape you do not recognize anymore. Your first instinct might be to tighten your grip, to force the pieces back together, or to hide the cracks so that the world believes everything is still whole and shimmering. Yet, it is often in the cracks that the light finds a way to enter, and it is in the detours that we discover landscapes we would have never seen if we had stayed on the main road. Acceptance is the soft breath you take when you realize that the detour is now the path, and that you have the strength to walk it, one step, one breath, and one heartbeat at a time. The teachings of the past remind us that everything is in a constant state of flux, like the clouds changing shape above a mountain peak, never staying the same for more than a fleeting second. We suffer because we try to freeze the clouds, trying to hold on to a shape that was never meant to be permanent, forgetting that the nature of life is to move and to transform. If you look at a flower, you see its beauty in the morning, its fullness at noon, and its gentle bowing toward the earth when the evening shadows begin to lengthen. The flower does not cry because it is fading, it does not hold on to its petals with a desperate fear of the wind, it simply follows the rhythm of its existence with a quiet, humble grace. When you can look at the cycles of your own life with that same grace, you find that peace is not something you go out and find, but something that rises from within when you stop the inner conflict. There was a disciple who once asked a great master how to find the key to the gate of heaven, imagining it to be a golden object hidden in a distant temple or a secret mantra. The master smiled and pointed to the shoes the disciple had left at the door, messy and worn from the long journey, covered in the dust of many different lands. He said that the key is not a thing you hold, but the way you walk, the way you allow the dust to settle on your skin without feeling diminished by the dirt of the world. If you can accept the dust on your shoes as part of the journey, if you can accept the tiredness in your feet as proof of your courage, then you are already standing in the garden of peace. We often wait for the perfect time to be happy, thinking that once this problem is solved, or once that person changes, or once we have enough security, then we can finally breathe. But the truth is that the ocean never stops having waves, and if you wait for the water to be perfectly still before you learn to swim, you will spend your entire life standing on the shore. The secret of the wise is to learn how to float, to let the waves carry you up and down, trusting that the water will hold you if you do not fight against its natural movement. When you accept that life will always have waves, you stop fearing the depth of the water and start appreciating the vastness of the horizon and the salt on the breeze. Consider the story of a merchant who lost his entire fortune in a storm at sea, seeing his ship sink beneath the dark, cold waves while he stood helpless on the pier. His friends came to comfort him, expecting to find a man broken by grief, but they found him sitting quietly, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of violet and gold. When they asked how he could be so calm after losing everything, he replied that the sea had given him much over the years, and now the sea had taken it back. If he spent his time mourning what was in the deep, he would miss the beauty of the sun that was still shining on the land where he stood, and he would lose his future to a past that no longer existed. He accepted the loss as a change in the weather of his life, knowing that as long as he could still breathe and still see the light, he was not truly empty-handed. This is the essence of a peaceful heart, a heart that understands that our possessions, our status, and even our physical forms are like borrowed robes that we must eventually return. When you stop defining your worth by what you have, you become invincible to the changes of fortune, for you have found a treasure within that no storm can ever reach. You might find it hard to accept the flaws within yourself, the mistakes you have made, or the parts of your personality that you wish were different, more polished, or more refined. You carry the weight of regret like a heavy cloak, turning back to look at the you of yesterday with a critical eye, forgetting that you were doing the best you could with the light you had. Acceptance means looking at your past self with the eyes of a kind parent, acknowledging the stumbles, the falls, and the scraped knees as necessary parts of learning how to walk. You are a work in progress, a masterpiece that is still being painted, and every stroke, even the ones that seem like mistakes, contributes to the depth and the story of the final canvas. When you forgive yourself for not being perfect, you create a space where growth can finally happen, for flowers do not bloom in soil that is packed too tightly with the stones of judgment. The Buddha often spoke about the middle way, a path that avoids the extremes of indulgence and self-punishment, a path that is found through the balance of a steady, accepting mind. It is like tuning a lute, where the string must be neither too tight nor too loose, for if it is too tight it will snap, and if it is too loose it will produce no music at all. Acceptance is the fine-tuning of the soul, finding that perfect tension where you are engaged with life but not strangled by your expectations of how it should turn out. You learn to play the melody of your days with a light touch, letting the notes rise and fall, sometimes in a major key of joy and sometimes in a minor key of quiet reflection. Both are necessary for a complete symphony, and both have their own unique beauty if you are willing to listen without trying to change the score while the music is playing. Think about a river that meets a great mountain in its path. It does not try to push the mountain out of the way, nor does it sit at the base and complain about the obstacle. The river simply finds a way around, flowing through the cracks, carving a new channel, and continuing its journey toward the sea with an unstoppable, gentle persistence. The mountain does not stop the river, it merely gives the river a new shape, a new direction, and a new story to tell as it whispers over the rocks and through the valleys. In your life, the mountains are the challenges that seem immovable, the circumstances that you cannot change no matter how much effort you put into the struggle. If you act like the river, you will find that these challenges do not have to be the end of your peace, but can instead become the catalyst for a new way of being, a new strength. You might discover depths of patience you never knew you possessed, or a level of compassion for others that could only be born from having walked through your own valley of shadows. Acceptance allows you to be fluid, to be adaptable, and to maintain your essence even when the landscape of your life changes in ways you never anticipated. There is a tale of a king who wanted to find a painting that represented true peace, and many artists brought him scenes of quiet lakes, sleepy villages, and soft, white clouds. But the painting he chose was one of a thundering waterfall, crashing against jagged rocks with a roar that seemed to vibrate through the very air of the palace. In the midst of the chaos, Behind the veil of mist and spray, there was a tiny bush growing in a crack of the rock, and on that bush, a small bird had built a nest. The bird was sitting on her eggs, her eyes calm, her body still, completely unbothered by the violence of the water that surrounded her on every side. The king explained that this was true peace, for peace is not the absence of noise, trouble, or hard work, it is the ability to be calm in your heart while being in the midst of it all. Acceptance is the nest we build in the cracks of the world, the place where we can rest and nurture our spirit while the waterfalls of life continue their inevitable, noisy descent. It is the inner sanctuary that remains dry even when the mist is thick, the steady ground that remains firm even when the earth beneath us seems to tremble with uncertainty. When you stop asking why the waterfall is so loud and start focusing on the stillness of the bird, you realize that your environment does not have the power to dictate your internal state. You are the guardian of your own quietness, and by accepting the noise of the world, you take away its ability to disturb the deep, underlying silence of your true nature. Sometimes, acceptance is about letting go of the people we love, not by pushing them away, but by accepting that their journey is their own, and we cannot walk it for them. We often try to fix those around us, thinking we know what is best for their happiness, and we become frustrated when they do not follow the map we have so carefully drawn. But love in its purest form is a wide, open field where people can wander, stumble, and find their own way back to the light, knowing that we are there, watching with an accepting heart. When you release the need to control others, you find a profound sense of relief, for the burden of managing another person's destiny is a weight that no human soul was meant to carry. You learn to appreciate them as they are, with all their thorns and their blossoms, understanding that every soul is blooming on its own timeline, under its own unique sun. The Buddha taught that our attachments are the root of our suffering, but he did not mean that we should not love, rather that we should love without the claws of possession. To love with acceptance is to hold a bird in your open palm, letting it stay because it chooses to, and letting it fly because that is what birds are born to do. If you close your hand to keep the bird, you crush its spirit and you lose the beauty of its song, but if you keep your hand open, the bird is truly yours in the moments it stays. This openness is the key to all relationships, the secret to a peace that is not threatened by the choices or the changes of those we hold dear to our hearts. It is also the key to our relationship with time, for we are often chasing the future or mourning the past, skipping over the only moment where life is actually happening. Acceptance of the present moment is the only way to truly live, for the future is a ghost that has not yet arrived and the past is a shadow that has already departed. When you are fully present, eating when you eat, walking when you walk, and listening when you listen, you find a richness in the ordinary that you had previously overlooked. The taste of a simple apple, the feeling of the wind on your skin, the sound of a child laughing in the distance, these are the treasures that are available only to those who are here. By accepting this moment, exactly as it is, you stop the frantic search for something better and realize that what you have right now is enough, it is more than enough, it is a miracle. There was once a monk who spent his days sweeping the leaves in the courtyard of a great monastery, and every time the wind blew, more leaves would fall, covering his work. A visitor asked him if he ever got frustrated with the wind, for it seemed that his work was never done, and the courtyard would never stay clean for long. The monk smiled and said that the wind is doing its job, and he is doing his, and the leaves are simply doing what leaves do when the season turns cold. If he wanted the wind to stop, he would be miserable, but since he accepts the wind as a partner in his dance, He finds joy in every stroke of the broom, no matter how many times he must repeat it. The repetition is not a burden but a rhythm, a meditation on the movement of life, where nothing is ever finished, and everything is always beginning again in a new form. You might find that your own life feels like sweeping leaves in a windstorm, with tasks that never end and problems that seem to reappear just when you thought you had solved them. If you can find the monk's smile within yourself, if you can see the rhythm instead of the frustration, then the wind will no longer feel like an enemy but like a companion. Acceptance transforms the mundane into the sacred, the struggle into a dance, and the noise of the world into a song that you can listen to with a quiet, knowing heart. It is the realization that you do not need to be anywhere else, or be anyone else, to experience the fullness of peace that is your natural, inherent birthright as a living being. This peace is like the space in a room, it is always there, even when the room is filled with furniture, noise, and people, it remains untouched, vast, and silent behind it all. When you accept the contents of the room, you stop fighting the furniture and start noticing the space, and in that space, you find the freedom to move, to breathe, and to simply be. You are not the furniture of your thoughts, you are not the noise of your emotions, you are the vast, silent space that holds them all with an unconditional, accepting embrace. The more you practice this acceptance, the more you realize that nothing in this world can truly hurt you, for your essence is like the sky, which remains blue even when clouds are gray. The clouds come and go, the storms rage and fade, but the sky does not change, it does not lose its nature, and it does not try to hold on to the lightning or the rain. Be like the sky, wide and open, allowing everything to pass through you without leaving a mark, without changing the fundamental peace that resides in the depths of your soul. When you walk through the world with this understanding, people will notice a difference in you, a certain lightness in your step and a quietness in your eyes that is deeply comforting. You become a source of peace for others, not by giving them advice or by solving their problems, but by simply being a person who is at home in their own skin, in their own life. Your acceptance becomes a mirror in which they can see their own potential for peace, a reminder that they too can set down their stones and breathe in the fresh air of the present. It is a gift that keeps on giving, for a peaceful heart is like a pebble dropped into a pond, creating ripples that extend far beyond the point of impact, touching shores you will never see. Every time you choose acceptance over resistance, you are contributing to the collective peace of the world, making it a little softer, a little kinder, and a little more beautiful for everyone. There was a story of a young girl who found a caterpillar that had been injured, its body bruised and its movement slow, struggling to find its way to a green leaf. She wanted to help it, to heal it, and to make it whole again, but she realized that she could not change the fact of its injury, nor could she speed up its slow, painful crawl. So she simply sat by it, protecting it from the birds, making sure it had a safe place to rest, and accepting its struggle as part of its own unique and difficult journey. Eventually, the caterpillar built its cocoon, and the girl waited with a heart full of hope, but when the butterfly emerged, one of its wings was shorter than the other, slightly crumpled. It could not fly as high or as fast as the other butterflies, but it found a way to flutter from flower to flower, living its life with a resilience that was breathtaking to behold. The girl realized that if she had tried to fix the wing, she might have broken it further, and if she had rejected the butterfly for its flaw, she would have missed the beauty of its spirit. Acceptance was her way of loving the butterfly as it was, and in doing so, she learned that perfection is not a requirement for a meaningful and vibrant existence in this world. We are all, in some way, like that butterfly, carrying our own crumpled wings, our own unique limitations, and our own histories of struggle that have shaped who we are today. When you accept your own limitations, you stop comparing yourself to those who seem to fly higher, and you start focusing on the flowers that are right in front of your own eyes. You find your own way to flutter, your own way to contribute your color to the garden, and you realize that your worth is not measured by the height of your flight, but by the courage of your heart. Life does not ask us to be flawless, it only asks us to be present, to be kind, and to accept the dance of light and shadow that makes us human and connects us to all living things. The Buddha taught that compassion begins with ourselves, and that we cannot truly love the world until we have learned to love the person we see when we look in the mirror. Acceptance is the foundation of that self-love, the quiet whisper that says it is okay to be you, it is okay to be here, and it is okay to not have all the answers right now. In the silence of that acceptance, you will find a strength that is quiet but unbreakable, a peace that is gentle but profound, and a joy that does not depend on the weather of the world. This inner quietness is much like the deep ocean, where the surface might be tossed by storms and howling winds, but the depths remain untouched, cool, and eternally still. When you learn to anchor your awareness in that depth, the surface noise of life becomes a distant echo, something that is happening but does not have the power to shake your foundation. You start to notice that the things you once considered obstacles are actually teachers in disguise, showing you where you are still clinging, where you are still afraid, and where you are still holding on to an old version of yourself. Every difficult person you encounter, every frustrating delay, and every unexpected change is an invitation to practice this art of letting the world be, without needing to fix it or control it for your own comfort. There was once a traveler who reached a wide river and found no boat to cross, and instead of lamenting his luck or waiting for the waters to part, he began to gather fallen branches and dried vines to build a simple raft. He worked with a focused mind, accepting the roughness of the wood and the heat of the sun, and when the raft was finished, he used it to reach the other side, where the path continued into a beautiful, sunlit meadow. The raft was a tool born of acceptance, a creative response to a reality that could not be ignored, proving that when we stop complaining about the river, we find the materials to build our way across. Once he reached the far shore, he did not carry the heavy raft on his back for the rest of his journey, he left it behind for the next traveler, acknowledging that what was useful in one moment can become a burden in the next. This is the fluidity of a mind that understands acceptance, it knows when to build, when to cross, and when to let go of the very things that once saved us. We often cling to our old coping mechanisms, our old beliefs, and our old identities long after they have served their purpose, afraid that without them, we will be lost in the vastness of the unknown. Acceptance is the courage to stand on the new shore with empty hands, trusting that the same wisdom that helped you build the raft will help you find your way through the meadow. You might find that your mind is constantly judging the present moment, labeling it as good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, and this habit of labeling is what keeps you caught in a cycle of reaction. When you label a situation as bad, your body tightens, your heart rate increases, and you enter a state of internal war, trying to escape a reality that is already here. If you can replace the label with a simple acknowledgement, saying to yourself, "This is what is happening right now," you break the spell of the reaction and reclaim your power. It is like watching a play where you are both the actor on the stage and the quiet observer in the audience, seeing the drama unfold without being swept away by the intensity of the performance. The observer knows that the play will have its tensions and its resolutions, its tragedies and its comedies, and that none of it is the ultimate truth of who they are. By being the observer of your own life, you create a buffer of peace between yourself and your circumstances, a space where you can choose your response instead of being a victim of your impulses. There is an old story of a potter who worked with clay every day, and he noticed that if he tried to force the clay into a shape it was not ready for, it would crack and collapse under his hands. But if he listened to the clay, feeling its moisture, its texture, and its hidden resistance, he could guide it into a vessel of great beauty and strength. The potter did not demand the clay to be different, he accepted its nature and worked in harmony with it, and in that partnership, something extraordinary was born. Your life is the clay, and your will is the potter's hand, but without the wisdom of acceptance, you will only produce broken pieces and exhausted spirits. When you work with the reality of your situation, when you accept the limitations of your time, your energy, and your resources, you find a creative flow that is far more powerful than any forced effort. You stop wasting energy on shoulds and musts, and you start focusing on what is possible, what is nourishing, and what is true in this very moment. This shift in perspective is subtle but life-changing, for it turns a life of obligation into a life of inspiration, where every challenge is a new piece of clay waiting to be shaped. Think about the way trees grow in a forest. They do not compete for the same space in a way that creates bitterness, they simply reach for the light, bending their branches and twisting their trunks to find the sun. If a rock is in the way of a root, the root does not stop growing, it slowly winds around the rock, embracing it, and eventually using the rock as an anchor to stand even firmer against the wind. The tree accepts the rock as part of its environment, and by doing so, it turns an obstacle into a source of stability. Can you look at the rocks in your own life with that same quiet determination, seeing them not as things that block your path, but as things that can help you ground yourself more deeply? Perhaps a difficult childhood, a health struggle, or a past failure is the very rock that your roots have wrapped around, giving you a strength and a resilience that others who have had an easier path might never know. Acceptance allows you to stop wishing the rock wasn't there and start appreciating the unique shape your life has taken because of it. The Buddha spoke often about the nature of perception, how our minds create the world we see, and how a mind clouded by desire and aversion will always see a world of suffering. When you practice acceptance, you are clearing the lens of your perception, wiping away the dust of your preferences so that you can see the world in its raw, unfiltered beauty. You begin to see that even the things you once feared have a place in the grand tapestry of existence, and that the dark threads are just as necessary as the bright ones to create the final pattern. Without the night, we would never know the stars, and without the winter, we would never appreciate the first, fragile green of the spring. When you accept the dark threads of your life, you stop trying to pull them out and start seeing how they give depth and contrast to the moments of joy. There was a group of monks who lived on a remote mountain, and their task was to maintain a garden that was often visited by wild animals who would eat the vegetables and trample the flowers. One monk wanted to build a high wall to keep the animals out, but the elder monk suggested they simply plant more than they needed, so there would be enough for the monks and the animals alike. By accepting the presence of the animals instead of fighting them, the monks turned the conflict into a community, and the garden became a place of harmony where all were fed. This approach requires a heart that is wide enough to hold everything, a heart that does not see the world in terms of us versus them, but in terms of a shared existence. When you have enough internal space, You don't need to build walls, you just need to expand your garden, offering your peace and your kindness to everyone, including those who might trample on your efforts. This does not mean you allow yourself to be mistreated, but rather that you do not let the actions of others dictate the quality of your heart. You remain a source of light, not because the world is bright, but because you have chosen to be a lamp, and a lamp does not ask if the room deserves its light, it simply shines. Acceptance is the fuel for that light, for it removes the shadows of resentment and anger that would otherwise dim your radiance. In the ancient times, there was a king who was known for his great wisdom, and he had a ring engraved with a phrase that he would look at whenever he felt overwhelmed by either great joy or great sorrow. The phrase was, "This too shall pass," a simple reminder of the temporary nature of all things, a truth that is the very heart of acceptance. When you understand that every emotion, every situation, and every breath is passing through you like a cloud, you stop trying to catch them or run away from them. You can enjoy the sunshine of a happy day without the desperate fear that it will end, and you can endure the darkness of a sad day without the hopeless belief that it will last forever. This perspective brings a sense of equanimity, a balanced state of mind where you are not tossed about like a leaf in the wind, but are like the mountain that watches the seasons change with a steady, unblinking eye. The mountain does not celebrate the summer or mourn the winter, it simply exists in a state of profound, silent acceptance, and because of that, it is the most majestic thing in the landscape. You have that same majesty within you, a part of your spirit that is ancient, wise, and completely at peace with the flow of time. As you go through your day, you might encounter small annoyances, like a long line at the store, a slow computer, or a misunderstanding with a friend. These are the perfect moments to practice acceptance in miniature, to see if you can let the frustration rise and then dissolve without acting on it. Can you smile at the long line, realizing that it gives you a few extra minutes to just breathe and be still? Can you accept the slow computer as an opportunity to practice patience, or the misunderstanding as a chance to listen more deeply and speak more kindly? When you can handle the small things with acceptance, you are building the spiritual muscles you will need when the big things come your way. It is like a musician practicing their scales every day so that when they have to perform a complex concerto, their fingers know exactly what to do without thinking. Your practice of acceptance is the scale of your soul, the daily training that prepares you for the symphony of life, with all its sudden shifts in tempo and its unexpected modulations. The Buddha once described the mind as being like a wild elephant that must be tamed with the rope of mindfulness and the post of presence. Acceptance is the gentle hand of the trainer who does not beat the elephant into submission, but understands its strength and guides it with love and consistency. When the elephant wanders off into the jungle of the past or the future, the trainer does not get angry, they simply lead it back to the present moment, over and over again. Eventually, the elephant learns to trust the trainer and becomes a powerful ally, capable of doing great work and carrying heavy burdens with ease. Your mind is that powerful, and when you stop fighting your own thoughts and start accepting them as just mental events, you gain a focus and a clarity that is truly remarkable. You no longer feel exhausted by your own inner dialogue, because you have stopped trying to silence it and have started to just listen to it with a compassionate, detached curiosity. This leads to a profound sense of inner freedom, the freedom to be exactly who you are, without the need for constant self-improvement or self-criticism. You realize that the you who is trying to improve is the same you who is already whole, and that the only thing you really need to do is to stop getting in your own way. Acceptance is the ultimate act of self-care, a way of saying yes to your life that ripples through every cell of your body and every corner of your mind. It is the key that unlocks the door to a peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that is not of this world but is perfectly at home within it. When you find this peace, you will see that it has been there all along, waiting for you to stop searching and start noticing the stillness that lives in the gaps between your breaths. It is the silent partner in all your activities, the hidden foundation of all your joys, and the quiet comfort in all your sorrows. Learning to accept is simply learning to return home, to the place where you were always meant to be, a place of unconditional belonging and infinite rest. In this place, there is no need for maps, for you are already at the destination, and every step you take is a celebration of being exactly where you are. You look at the world with eyes of wonder, seeing the sacred in the ordinary and the extraordinary in the simple, and you realize that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Every moment is a gift, even the ones that come wrapped in the rough paper of difficulty, for they all contain the same light of awareness that is the essence of all things. When you can say, thank you, to the light and, thank you, to the shadows, you have mastered the highest teaching of the wise, and your heart will be a fountain of peace for all who cross your path. The journey of acceptance is not a destination you reach and then stay at, it is a continuous, living practice, a way of breathing and moving through the world that evolves with every experience you have. You will have days when it feels easy, when the heart is open and the world feels like a friendly place, and you will have days when it feels nearly impossible, when the weight of the world seems too much to bear. On those difficult days, the practice is even more important, not to force yourself to be peaceful, but to accept that today is a day of struggle. Accepting your own resistance is the highest form of acceptance, for it means you are not even fighting the part of you that wants to fight. You allow yourself to be human, to be tired, to be frustrated, and in that allowing, the intensity of the struggle begins to soften, like a knot that slowly loosens when you stop pulling at the ends. This is the gentleness of the path, a path that does not demand you to be a saint or a hero, but only to be honest with yourself and kind to your own heart. As you sit in this space of reflection, you might feel a sense of relief washing over you, a feeling that you don't have to carry it all by yourself anymore. The universe is vast and intelligent, and it has been taking care of the stars and the seasons long before you were born, and it will continue to do so long after you are gone. You are a part of that same intelligence, a part of that same vastness, and you can trust that life knows what it is doing, even when you don't. When you align yourself with this trust, acceptance becomes natural, like a leaf falling into a stream and being carried along by the current, without any effort of its own. The stream knows the way to the ocean, and the leaf is safe in its embrace, dancing over the rocks and resting in the quiet pools, always moving toward the great, infinite source. You are that leaf, and your life is that stream, and the ocean of peace is waiting for you with open arms, ready to welcome you back into the stillness from which you came. Trusting the current of existence allows you to perceive the subtle beauty in things that are often dismissed as broken or incomplete, like the weathered texture of an old gate or the way the moss grows in the damp shadows where the sun rarely reaches. There is a profound dignity in the aged and the worn, a story written in the lines of a face or the cracks of a stone, reminding us that nothing needs to be pristine to be precious. If you look at an old tree that has been twisted by the salt and the wind near the sea, you do not see it as a failure of growth, you see it as a magnificent testament to survival and adaptation. The tree did not wish for a calm valley, it simply accepted the gale and turned its struggle into a unique form of art, showing us that our own scars are often our most beautiful features. When you stop trying to hide the parts of your life that have been touched by the storm, you allow others to see the true strength of your spirit, creating a bridge of authentic connection that can only be built on the ground of honesty. In the time when the Buddha stayed at the Jetavana monastery, there was a king who was deeply troubled by the fear of losing his kingdom, his power, and the legacy he had spent his life building. He could not sleep, for his mind was always wandering into the future, imagining enemies at the gates and betrayal in the shadows of his own palace. He asked how one could be a leader and yet remain at peace, how one could hold the responsibility of many lives without being crushed by the weight of the crown. The teaching he received was not about military strategy or political wisdom, but about the nature of a bird that perches on a branch, never fearing that the branch will break. The bird does not trust the branch, for the branch is outside of its control and can snap in any sudden wind. The bird trusts its own wings, which are its true source of safety. Acceptance is the realization that your security lies not in the stability of your circumstances, but in the resilience of your own awareness, which can fly regardless of what breaks beneath you. When you cultivate this inner strength, you can walk through the palace or the marketplace with the same steady heart, knowing that the world may change its face, but your wings remain yours to command. This shift from external reliance to internal trust is like moving from a house built on sand to a sanctuary carved into the living rock of a mountain. It takes time and patience to carve that sanctuary, but once it is there, it becomes a place where you can retreat whenever the winds of life blow too cold or too hard. You might notice that much of your daily anxiety comes from the habit of rehearsing disasters that have not happened, filling your mind with scenarios that may never come to pass. Acceptance is the gentle hand that pulls you back from the ledge of the future, reminding you that you only have the strength to deal with what is happening right now. You do not need to solve the problems of next month or next year today, you only need to accept the breath you are taking in this second, and the task that is currently before your hands. If you are washing a bowl, let the world be just the bowl, the water, and the movement of your hands, without the shadow of tomorrow's worries flickering in the background. When you give yourself fully to the present task, the task itself becomes a prayer, a way of honoring the life that is flowing through you, and the anxiety of the future begins to starve from lack of attention. There was once a stonecutter who was unhappy with his lot in life, looking at the rich merchants and the powerful officials with a heart that burned with the fire of envy. He wished to be the sun, thinking the sun was the most powerful being, but when he became the sun, he found that a cloud could block his rays and make him feel small. He then wished to be the cloud, only to find that the wind could blow him wherever it pleased, and when he became the wind, he found that a great stone mountain could stand firm against his strongest blast. Finally, he realized that the stonecutter, who chips away at the mountain bit by bit, was the one who truly held the power to shape the world, even if his progress was slow and his work was humble. Acceptance of his own role, his own pace, and his own unique power was the only thing that could bring him the peace that the sun, the cloud, and the wind could never provide. We often chase after roles and identities that we think will make us feel complete, forgetting that the most powerful thing you can be is exactly who you are at this moment. Your life has its own rhythm, its own season of planting and its own season of harvest, and trying to force the fruit to ripen in the winter only leads to bitterness and waste. If you are in a season of waiting, accept the stillness, for the roots are growing deep in the dark earth even when there is no sign of green above the surface. If you are in a season of loss, accept the grief, for the rain is necessary to wash away the old and prepare the ground for the new life that will eventually emerge. Nothing in nature is hurried, yet everything is accomplished, and you are as much a part of nature as the stars, the trees, and the tides that move the great oceans of the world. Think of the way a master musician handles a mistake during a live performance. They do not stop the music to apologize or to lament the wrong note, for that would only disrupt the flow further. They accept the note as it was played, they integrate it into the next phrase, and they continue the melody with such grace that the listener might even think the mistake was a deliberate part of the song. Your life is a live performance, and there will be wrong notes, there will be slips of the tongue and errors of judgment that you wish you could take back. But the music is always moving forward, and your job is to keep playing, to take the wrong note and surround it with enough beauty and kindness that it becomes a meaningful part of your story. When you refuse to be paralyzed by your mistakes, you find that the melody of your life becomes richer, more complex, and more deeply moving to those who hear it. The Buddha taught that the mind is like a mirror, its true nature is to reflect whatever passes before it without being stained by the images, whether they are of flowers or of filth. If you can keep your mind like a mirror, you can accept the presence of difficult thoughts and heavy emotions without letting them define the clarity of your soul. The anger may appear, but the mirror is not angry, the sadness may drift by, but the mirror is not sad, it simply holds the reflection with an unwavering, impartial stillness. Suffering arises when we try to grab the reflections, trying to keep the beautiful ones and scrub away the ugly ones, which only leaves the mirror smudged and distorted. Let the world reflect within you. Let the sounds and the colors and the feelings come and go, and stay centered in the part of you that is the witness, the silent observer who remains untouched. This is the secret of a quiet heart, a heart that does not need to flee from the world to find peace, but finds peace right in the middle of the crowded street and the noisy conversation. You may find yourself in a situation where you feel stuck, where the walls seem to be closing in and there is no obvious way out of the difficulty you are facing. Acceptance in this moment is the act of looking at the walls without panic, noticing the texture of the stone and the way the light falls on the floor, and finding the small space where you can still breathe. When you stop banging your head against the wall, your mind becomes quiet enough to notice the door that has been there all along, or perhaps the crack in the stone that you can use to climb. Panic and resistance are like a thick fog that hides the exits, while acceptance is the sunlight that burns the fog away, revealing the path that was hidden by your own fear. There is a story of an old man who lived in a village and was known for his incredible luck, but every time something good happened, he would only say, maybe, and every time something bad happened, he would say the same. When his horse ran away, the neighbors mourned his loss, but he said, maybe, and when the horse returned with a herd of wild horses, they celebrated his wealth, but he said, maybe. When his son broke his leg taming one of those horses, they pitied him, but he said, maybe, and when a war broke out and the young men were conscripted, his son was spared because of his injury. The old man knew that acceptance is not about judging the individual events, but about trusting the unfolding of the whole story, a story that is far larger than our limited vision can perceive. We only see a single stitch in the vast tapestry, and it may look like a dark, tangled thread, but from the other side, it is an essential part of a breathtakingly beautiful design. By saying, maybe, to the twists and turns of your life, you remain open to the hidden blessings and the unexpected lessons that are tucked inside every challenge you encounter. You become a person of great depth, someone who can sit with the suffering of others without trying to fix them with hollow words, for you know that the struggle itself is a sacred part of the process. Your presence becomes a healing balm, a quiet reassurance that everything is unfolding as it should, even when the logic of the world says otherwise. In the quiet moments of your day, perhaps when you are walking alone or sitting by a window, try to listen to the silence that exists beneath all the noises of the environment. This silence is not empty, it is full of a presence that is ancient and kind, a presence that accepts you exactly as you are, without asking for anything in return. When you align your own heart with that silence, you realize that you are never truly alone, and that you are supported by the same power that keeps the planets in their orbits. Acceptance is the bridge between your small, individual self and this vast, universal presence, the gate through which you pass to leave behind the world of struggle and enter the world of grace. It is a homecoming that requires no travel, a transformation that requires no effort, and a peace that requires no conditions to be met. You are already home, you are already whole, and the only thing left to do is to relax into the truth of your own being, letting the world be the world, and letting yourself be you. As you move through the rest of your day, keep this feeling of openness in your chest, like a window that is always slightly ajar, letting in the fresh air and the songs of the birds. When a difficult moment arises, simply notice the window, feel the breeze, and remember that you have the space within you to hold it all with a gentle, accepting smile. You are the sky, and the clouds are just passing through, and the blue remains, eternal and vast, a silent witness to the magnificent dance of your life. This expansive sky of your consciousness does not discriminate between the eagle and the sparrow, nor does it try to push away the storm to make way for the rainbow, for it knows that its own nature is wide enough to accommodate the entire spectrum of existence. When you live from this place of spaciousness, you begin to see that even your deepest fears are like small birds fluttering in a vast cathedral. Their wings may create a momentary sound, but the silence of the space is never truly broken. There is a profound freedom in realizing that you do not have to be a victim of your own history, and that every morning offers a clean slate, a chance to respond to the world with a fresh heart that is not weighted down by the grievances of yesterday. Acceptance is the brush that cleans the slate, allowing you to see your friends, your family, and even your enemies with eyes that are no longer clouded by the stories you have told yourself about who they are and what they have done. In the time of the Buddha, there was a woman who was overwhelmed by the complexity of her household duties, her mind jumping like a restless monkey from one task to another, never finding a moment of genuine rest. She asked how a person in the midst of a busy life could ever hope to touch the hem of tranquility, thinking that peace was only for those who could hide away in the high mountains or the deep forests. The guidance she received was to treat every movement of her day, from the drawing of water to the sweeping of the hearth, as an opportunity to be fully awake, to accept the texture of the broom and the coolness of the water without wishing to be elsewhere. By accepting the here and now of her chores, she found that the very things she once resented became her path to liberation, and the walls of her home became the walls of a temple where she practiced the art of presence. The weight of her life did not change, but the way she carried it did, for she had discovered that when you stop resisting the weight itself becomes the ground that supports your feet. You might find that your body carries the tension of years of saying no to reality, a tightness in the neck, a shallow breath, or a heart that feels as though it is constantly on guard against a hidden threat. Acceptance is a physical practice as much as a mental one, a conscious softening of the muscles and a deepening of the breath that signals to your nervous system that it is safe to let go of the shield. When you soften, you allow the life force to flow through you more freely, nourishing the parts of your soul that have been parched by the heat of your own constant striving and defense. It is like a dry, cracked riverbed that finally receives the first rain of the season. The water does not ask for permission, it simply fills the cracks and brings the possibility of green life back to the dusty earth. There was a traveler who came across a master sitting by a busy road, and the traveler asked why the master looked so content while the dust of the passing carts was coating his robes and the noise of the travelers was constant. The master replied that the dust is only dust, and the noise is only noise, and if he tried to fight the dust, he would only create more of it with his own flailing arms. By sitting still and accepting the environment as it was, the master had become a part of the landscape, as natural as the trees and the stones, and the world no longer had the power to disturb his inner sanctuary. This does not mean becoming passive or indifferent, but rather becoming so deeply aligned with the truth of the moment that you no longer waste your vital energy on unnecessary internal friction. You save your strength for the things that truly matter, for the acts of kindness, the moments of creativity, and the slow, steady work of becoming a person who radiates light and warmth to a world that is often cold and dark. Acceptance is the economy of the soul, a way of managing your inner resources so that you are not constantly bankrupting yourself by arguing with things you cannot change. If you find yourself in a season of transition, where the old landmarks are gone and the new ones have not yet appeared, accept the fog as a protective veil that allows you to rest and recalibrate. You do not need to see the entire horizon to take the next step, you only need to see the small patch of ground where your foot is about to land, and trust that the path will reveal itself as you move forward. The fog is not there to hinder you, it is there to remind you that the journey is not about reaching a destination, but about the quality of your presence in every single inch of the way. When you can walk through the fog with a smile, knowing that the sun is still there even if you cannot see it, you have achieved a level of mastery that most people only dream of. Think about the way a lotus grows, starting in the mud and the dark water, far away from the light of the sun, yet it does not complain about the mud or the thickness of the water that surrounds it. The lotus accepts the mud as its source of nourishment, it uses the resistance of the water to push itself upward, and it eventually breaks through the surface to bloom in a state of pure, untainted beauty. Without the mud, there would be no lotus, and without the darkness, the flower would have no reason to reach for the light. Your own mud, the difficult circumstances, the painful memories, and the personal flaws you struggle with, are the very things that are providing the nutrients for your eventual blooming. If you can accept your mud, if you can stop wishing for a cleaner pond and start using the material you have been given, you will find a beauty rising within you that is all the more precious because of where it started. This is the alchemy of the heart, the ability to turn the lead of suffering into the gold of wisdom through the simple, persistent power of acceptance. The Buddha once spoke of the ocean having only one taste, the taste of salt, and he said that his teachings have only one taste, the taste of freedom. Acceptance is the primary ingredient in that freedom, for it releases you from the prison of your own expectations and the chains of your own attachments. When you are free, you can enjoy the world without being bound by it, you can love without being consumed by it, and you can act without being attached to the results of your actions. You become like a clear mountain stream, flowing over the rocks and through the valleys, always changing and yet always the same, a source of life and refreshment for everything it touches. The stream does not hold on to the mountain, and it does not fear the valley, it simply flows, and in that flowing, it finds its own perfection and its own peace. As you listen to these words, let them sink into your heart like seeds being dropped into a quiet, fertile field, and do not worry about when or how they will grow. Just accept the seeds, accept the field, and let the natural intelligence of life take care of the rest, knowing that everything is unfolding in its own perfect time. You may feel a sense of lightness in your chest, a loosening of the old knots, and a feeling of space where there was once only pressure and demand. This is the beginning of the shift, the first ripples of the peace that comes when you finally decide to stop pushing the river and start letting the river carry you. It is a gentle process, like the dawn slowly spreading across the sky, chasing away the shadows not by force, but by the simple, persistent presence of the light. You are that light, and the world is the sky, and every moment is an opportunity to shine with the brilliance of a heart that has learned the secret of saying yes. Let this yes be your mantra, your silent companion as you walk through the marketplace, as you sit at your desk, and as you look into the eyes of the people you meet. When you say yes to life, life says yes to you, and the doors that were once locked begin to swing open, not because you have the key, but because you are no longer trying to force them. You find that you are supported in ways you never expected, that help arrives from surprising directions, and that the world begins to mirror back to you the peace you have cultivated within. This is not a miracle in the traditional sense, but a natural law of the spirit, for the outer world is always a reflection of the inner landscape. If your inner landscape is a place of war and resistance, you will see enemies everywhere, but if it is a place of acceptance and peace, you will see friends and teachers in every face and every situation. The power to change the world is held in your ability to change the way you see the world, and acceptance is the lens that brings everything into a beautiful, harmonious focus. Take a moment to appreciate the sound of your own breath, that rhythmic, steady pulse that has been with you since the very beginning and will be with you until the very end. The breath does not ask for your opinion, it does not wait for your permission, it simply happens, a gift of life that is renewed every few seconds. By accepting your breath, you are accepting life itself, acknowledging that you are a part of a much larger whole, a vast, interconnected web of being that is breathing through you. There is nothing you need to do to deserve this breath, and there is nothing you can do to hold on to it, you can only receive it with gratitude and let it go with trust. This cycle of receiving and letting go is the fundamental rhythm of existence, the heartbeat of the universe that is echoed in the tides, the seasons, and the cycles of the stars. When you align your own life with this rhythm, you find a sense of belonging that is deeper than any social connection or professional achievement. You belong to the earth, you belong to the sky, and you belong to the infinite source of all things, and in that belonging, you find the ultimate security. No one can take this from you, and no one can give it to you. It is yours by virtue of your very existence, a treasure that is hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to recognize it. Acceptance is the act of recognition, the moment when you stop looking for the treasure in distant lands and realize that you have been sitting on it all along. It is the end of the search and the beginning of the celebration, a celebration that does not require music or guests, but only the quiet, joyful awareness of being alive. As you go about your tasks today, carry this celebration in your heart, let it be the secret smile that touches your lips when no one is watching. Let it be the kindness in your voice when you speak to a stranger, and the patience in your spirit when you encounter a delay or a disappointment. You are a carrier of peace, a messenger of acceptance, and the world needs your light now more than ever, even if it does not yet know how to ask for it. Your simple presence, rooted in the truth of acceptance, is a healing force that touches everyone you meet, creating a ripple effect of calm that extends far beyond your own immediate circle. Do not underestimate the power of a single heart that is at peace, for such a heart is a lighthouse in the storm, a steady point of reference for all those who are lost at sea. You do not need to say anything, you do not need to do anything special, you only need to be, and to be with an open, accepting heart. This is the greatest service you can offer to the world, and it is the greatest gift you can give to yourself, a gift that will never fade and never fail you. In the silence between these words, feel the truth of what is being shared, not as an idea for the mind, but as a resonance for the soul. You are exactly where you need to be, and you are exactly who you need to be, and the journey you are on is sacred, every step of it, every stumble of it, and every moment of it. The sacredness of your journey is often found in the quiet intervals of transition, those moments when the old chapter has faded into a memory and the new one has yet to reveal its first sentence. During these times, the mind often feels a sense of urgency, a desperate need to fill the void with plans, labels, or new attachments to avoid the vulnerability of simply not knowing. True acceptance thrives in this empty space, inviting you to sit with the uncertainty as if it were a dear friend, understanding that the void is not a lack of life, but a fertile womb where new possibilities are gathering their strength. If you watch a gardener in the winter, you see someone who is not troubled by the bare branches or the frozen soil, for they have accepted the hidden work of the roots beneath the surface. They do not try to pull the blossoms out by force, nor do they mourn the absence of the leaves, they simply maintain the garden with a quiet, steady trust in the unseen cycles of the earth. When you apply this same patience to your own soul, you stop seeing your periods of stillness as wasted time and start seeing them as essential for the depth and quality of your future growth. There was once a village nestled in a valley where a great river would overflow its banks every year, bringing both rich silt for the crops and the temporary chaos of flooding to the lower houses. For generations, the people fought the water, building walls that would crumble and cursing the rains that brought the rising tide, living in a constant state of fear and exhaustion. One day, a young person suggested that instead of fighting the water, they should build their houses on stilts and create channels that would lead the floodwater gently into the thirsty fields. By accepting the nature of the river rather than demanding it to be still, the villagers transformed a recurring disaster into a source of abundance, and the sound of the rising water became a song of coming prosperity. Your own emotions are like that river, sometimes calm and reflective, and sometimes surging with a force that threatens to overwhelm the structures you have built for your comfort. If you spend your life building walls against your sadness, your anger, or your fear, you will find yourself exhausted by the constant repairs and the lingering dampness of suppressed feelings. Acceptance is the act of building your house on the stilts of awareness, allowing the emotions to flow beneath you without washing away your foundation. You watch the waters rise, you acknowledge their power, and you guide their energy into the fields of your understanding, where they can be transformed into the rich soil of wisdom and empathy for others. When you no longer fear the flood, you can enjoy the beauty of the rain, and you can see the reflection of the clouds in the very water that you once thought would destroy you. The Buddha spoke of the 4 stages of a flame, how it begins, how it flickers, how it burns bright, and how it eventually leaves the wick to return to the invisible air. If the flame tried to hold on to the wick, it would only produce smoke and bitterness, but by accepting its own consuming nature, it provides light and warmth to everyone in the room. We are often like a flame that is terrified of the dark, clinging to the objects of our desire as if they were the source of our light, forgetting that our true radiance comes from our willingness to let go. Every experience you have is a piece of wood for your fire, meant to be used, meant to be transformed, and eventually meant to be released so that the next moment can take its place. If you hold on to a painful memory, it is like trying to keep a charred log in the center of your hearth. It takes up space, it provides no warmth, and it prevents the fresh wood from catching fire. Acceptance is the hand that clears away the ash, making room for the heat of the present and the light of a heart that is not afraid to burn with the intensity of being alive. Think of a musician who has spent years perfecting a difficult piece of music, only to realize that the most beautiful part of the performance is not the notes themselves, but the silence between them. Without the pause, the melody would be a meaningless noise, a frantic rush of sound that offers no space for the listener to breathe or to feel the resonance of the strings. Acceptance is the embrace of the pauses in your life, the moments when nothing is happening, when no progress is being made, and when the world seems to be holding its breath. In these pauses, the resonance of your experiences settles into your bones, and the meaning of your struggles begins to crystallize into a quiet, unwavering sense of purpose. You do not need to be constantly doing to be valuable, for your value is found in the quality of your being, in the way you inhabit the silence and the way you offer your presence to the void. There was a story of a master who was asked how to deal with the constant chatter of the mind, the voices that judge, the voices that worry, and the voices that keep us from the peace of the present. The master replied that you should treat your thoughts like guests in a house. You welcome them at the door, you offer them a seat, but you do not serve them tea, and you do not ask them to stay. By accepting the thoughts without feeding them with your attention or trying to kick them out with your frustration, you find that they eventually leave on their own, bored by your lack of engagement. The house remains, the space remains, and you remain the host who is no longer a prisoner of the guests, but a sovereign who knows the difference between a passing visitor and the permanent home. This level of detached acceptance is not cold or distant, it is the highest form of intimacy with yourself, for it allows you to see the entirety of your internal world without flinching. You see the shadows and the light, the smallness and the greatness, the scars and the smooth skin, and you hold it all with a compassion that is as vast as the sky and as steady as the earth. When you can sit with yourself in this way, you find that you no longer need the world to validate you, for you have found a validation that is independent of any external achievement or opinion. You are like a mountain that is not moved by the praise of the hikers who reach the summit, nor by the complaints of those who find the trail too steep and too rocky. The mountain is simply the mountain, rooted in its own reality, accepting the snow and the sun with the same majestic indifference to the shifting winds of human judgment. As you move through your day, practice this mountain-like quality, feeling the weight of your presence and the stability of your heart amidst the frantic movement of the world. When someone speaks a harsh word, let it be like a gust of wind against the granite. It might whistle through the trees, but it cannot move the stone. When someone offers a gift of kindness, let it be like the morning sun warming the peaks, beautiful and welcome, but not something the mountain needs to be what it is. This self-contained peace is the ultimate key to acceptance, for it removes the desperation that drives us to try and change the world to fit our fragile sense of self. When you know you are the mountain, you can let the weather be the weather, and you can watch the dance of the elements with a heart that is both engaged and utterly at rest. You begin to notice that the world is much more beautiful when you are not trying to fix it, and that the people around you are much more lovable when you are not trying to improve them. Your acceptance becomes a sanctuary for everyone you encounter, a place where they can set down their own masks and their own heavy burdens, if only for a few moments in your presence. They feel seen, they feel heard, and they feel allowed to be exactly who they are, which is the greatest gift one human being can ever offer to another. This is the path of the kind roots, a path that goes deep into the earth of reality, drinking from the hidden springs of acceptance and rising into the air with the strength of a quiet, compassionate heart. The deeper the roots go into the truth of what is, the higher the branches can reach into the light of what can be, and the more shade and comfort the tree can provide to the weary travelers of life. There is no effort in this growth, only the natural unfolding of a soul that has stopped fighting the rain and started using it to nourish its own magnificent potential. Every drop of difficulty, every ray of joy, and every shadow of doubt is a part of the grand design, a necessary element in the creation of the person you are becoming. Trust the process, trust the timing, and most of all, trust the silence that is always here, waiting to remind you that everything is okay, and everything is as it should be. You are safe in the arms of the present, held by a love that is too large to be seen and too deep to be measured, a love that is the very fabric of the air you breathe. Let go of the oars, let the current take you, and keep your eyes open to the wonders that are appearing on the banks of the river as you drift toward the great, shining sea. The beauty of the journey is not in the distance covered, but in the depth of the awareness you bring to every inch of the water, and the peace you find in the simple act of being carried. You are the river, you are the leaf, and you are the ocean, all at once, a miracle of existence that is unfolding in a state of perfect, effortless acceptance. In the quiet pulse of your own heart, feel the resonance of this truth, and let it be the steady drumbeat that guides your steps as you walk through the beautiful, chaotic, and sacred landscape of your days. The resonance of this truth often reveals itself in the way we handle the things that seem mundane, the small, repetitive tasks that fill the hours of our ordinary days. We often think that peace is found in the grand gestures or the deep meditations, yet it is often tucked away in the way you hold a cup of tea, the way you listen to the hum of the city, or the way you fold your clothes with a quiet, attentive heart. When you accept the smallness of the moment, you find that there is no such thing as a boring task, for every action is an opportunity to be fully present and to honor the life that is flowing through your hands. There was once a weaver who worked in a village at the edge of a great desert, spending her days creating intricate patterns from simple threads of wool and silk. One day, a thread would break, or the colors would not blend as she had imagined, and in her youth, she would pull at the loom in frustration, causing the entire fabric to become tight and uneven. As the years passed, she learned that a broken thread was not a disaster but a chance to weave a new, unexpected design into the cloth, a subtle variation that made each piece unique and full of character. She stopped fighting the imperfections and started welcoming them as the signature of the living world, understanding that a perfect rug is a dead thing, while a rug with a few human errors carries the warmth of the soul. By accepting the reality of the loom and the limits of the thread, she became a master whose work was sought after across the lands, not for its perfection, but for the profound sense of peace it radiated. Your life is that loom, and your experiences are the threads, some bright and golden, others dark and rough, all weaving together to form a pattern that only you can create. If you try to pull out the dark threads, you weaken the structure of the whole, but if you accept them, you find that they provide the depth and the contrast that make the bright colors truly shine. Acceptance is the steady hand of the weaver who knows that the beauty of the tapestry is not found in any single thread, but in the harmonious relationship between all of them, the light and the dark, the smooth and the coarse. When you look back at the difficult chapters of your story, can you see how the pain of a loss or the sting of a failure was actually a dark thread that added a necessary strength to the fabric of your character? Without those moments, you might have been a thinner, more fragile version of yourself, lacking the empathy and the resilience that now define the way you move through the world. There was a story from the time of the ancient elders about a man who found a cocoon in the forest and saw the butterfly struggling to emerge through a tiny hole in the silk. Thinking he was being kind, he took a small pair of scissors and snipped the cocoon to make the opening larger, allowing the butterfly to crawl out easily without any effort. However, the butterfly emerged with a swollen body and shriveled wings, never able to fly, for the struggle of pushing through the narrow opening was the very thing that forced the fluid from its body into its wings, making them strong enough for flight. The man had refused to accept the necessity of the struggle, and in his desire to remove the pain, he had also removed the butterfly's ability to live its highest potential. We often do this to ourselves and to those we love, trying to avoid the narrow openings and the difficult passages, forgetting that the pressure is what prepares us for the vastness of the sky. Acceptance means honoring the struggle, understanding that the weight you are carrying and the resistance you are feeling are the very things that are building the strength you will need for the next stage of your journey. When you stop trying to snip the cocoon of your own life, you find a new kind of patience, a willingness to wait for the natural timing of things, and a trust that the process knows exactly what it is doing. This trust is not a blind belief that everything will turn out the way you want, but a deep, cellular knowing that everything will turn out in a way that serves your growth and your awakening. The Buddha taught that our suffering is like a person who is thirsty, standing in the middle of a torrential rainstorm with their mouth tightly closed, refusing to drink because they wanted the water to come from a specific well instead of the sky. We are surrounded by the grace and the nourishment we need, but we often miss it because we are too busy judging the source or complaining that the delivery is not what we expected. Acceptance is the act of opening your mouth to the rain, letting the nourishment in regardless of how it arrives, and finding that the universe is far more generous than your limited desires ever imagined. You might find that you are holding on to a version of yourself that no longer exists, a you that was younger, healthier, or more successful, and you use that memory as a stick to beat the person you are today. This self-rejection is a profound form of violence against the spirit, a refusal to accept the natural law of change and the dignity of the present version of your soul. Acceptance is looking into the mirror and saying, "This is who I am today," with the same kindness you would offer to a dear friend who has aged or changed over the years. You acknowledge the gray in your hair, the lines around your eyes, and the slowing of your pace as badges of honor, proof that you have lived, that you have felt, and that you have endured. When you accept your current self, you release the energy that was tied up in mourning the past, and you find a renewed vitality that is grounded in the reality of your present body and mind. There was a student who asked a teacher how to remain calm when the world is full of injustice and the hearts of men seem cold and filled with greed. The teacher pointed to a large rock in the middle of a stream and said that the rock does not stop the water from being cold, nor does it stop the water from being fast, it simply remains a rock. The rock's job is not to change the river, but to be the most solid, steady rock it can be, providing a place for the birds to rest and a point of stillness for the fish to hide behind. By being a point of acceptance in a world of resistance, you become that rock, a source of stability that others can lean on, and a reminder that peace is possible even when the current is strong. You do not need to have all the answers to the world's problems to be a force for good. You only need to be a person who does not add to the chaos with your own internal conflict. When your heart is a place of peace, that peace radiates outward, softening the edges of the room you are in, and making the people around you feel a little safer, a little more understood. This is the quiet revolution of acceptance, a change that happens not through loud demands or forceful actions, but through the simple, steady presence of a soul that has found its own center. You begin to see that everyone you meet is also struggling with their own cocoon, their own broken threads, and their own narrow openings, and your judgment is replaced by a deep, wordless compassion. You no longer need people to be perfect to love them, for you have seen the beauty in the struggle, and you have realized that the cracks are where the light is most likely to find its way in. This compassion is the fruit of acceptance, a sweetness that grows in the garden of a heart that has stopped fighting the weather and started appreciating the garden for what it is. As you go through the rest of your day, notice the moments when you want to say no to what is happening, and see if you can gently turn that no into a yes. Yes to the traffic, yes to the noise, yes to the feeling of tiredness, and yes to the unexpected change in your plans. With every yes, you are dropping a heavy weight, and with every yes, you are opening a window to the fresh air of the present moment. You will find that the world feels lighter, not because the circumstances have changed, but because you are no longer carrying the extra burden of your own resistance. You are walking through life with open hands, ready to receive whatever the moment brings, and ready to let it go when the moment passes, like a dancer moving in perfect time with the music. The music is always playing, and the invitation to the dance is always open, and the only thing you need to do is to step onto the floor and let your heart follow the rhythm of the life that is already here. Stepping onto the floor of this vast, eternal dance requires a certain kind of vulnerability, a willingness to let the music lead you into territories of the soul that you might have previously kept behind locked doors. We often spend so much effort trying to curate a version of ourselves that feels safe and predictable, yet the most vibrant parts of our being are usually the ones that are raw, untamed, and perfectly honest about our human frailty. Acceptance is the key that turns in the lock of those hidden doors, allowing you to walk into the rooms of your own shadows with a gentle light, finding that the monsters you feared are merely echoes of old wounds waiting for a bit of kindness. When you stop trying to be the person who has everything under control, you give yourself the permission to be the person who is simply alive, experiencing the full texture of existence without the need to apologize for your tears or your confusion. There is a story of a traveler who found an old, abandoned temple in the middle of a desert, its walls covered in the dust of centuries and its statues worn smooth by the relentless shifting of the sands. Instead of trying to restore the temple to its former glory, the traveler sat in the middle of the ruins and watched how the moonlight played across the broken stones, realizing that the temple was more beautiful in its decay than it could ever have been when it was new. The cracks in the walls allowed the starlight to enter, and the absence of a roof meant that the entire sky was now the temple's ceiling, a vastness that no architect could ever have designed. Your own life, with its broken parts and its unfinished stories, is that temple, a place where the divine and the human meet in the most unexpected and beautiful ways. If you can accept the ruins, if you can stop mourning the roof that is no longer there, you will find that you have a much better view of the stars, and that the wind blowing through the halls is a song of freedom rather than a cold draft of loss. The Buddha often spoke of the importance of right view, which is the ability to see things as they truly are, stripped of the layers of our own projections, our own fears, and our own desperate desires for things to be otherwise. When you practice acceptance, you are refining your view, cleaning the dust off the lens of your awareness so that you can perceive the inherent perfection in the messy, unorganized reality of the world. You start to see that the person who cut you off in traffic is also a temple in ruins, struggling with their own storms, and the friend who let you down is just a traveler who lost their way in the fog for a moment. This clarity does not make you indifferent to the pain of the world, but it gives you a ground of compassion that is not easily shaken by the temporary gusts of anger or disappointment. You move from a state of constant reaction to a state of deep, quiet response, acting from the center of your own peace rather than being pulled into the chaos of everyone else's internal storms. Think of a bell that is rung in the middle of a quiet forest. The sound is clear and resonant because the bell does not try to hold on to the vibration, it lets the sound go as soon as it is born, allowing it to ripple through the trees and eventually fade back into the silence. If the bell were made of a material that tried to trap the sound, the vibration would turn into a dull, unpleasant heat, and the bell would eventually crack under the pressure of its own internal tension. Acceptance is the quality of being like a well-cast bell, receiving the strikes of life with a resonance that is honest and full, and then letting the sound go with a grace that returns you to your natural state of stillness. You feel the joy, you feel the grief, you feel the excitement, and you feel the boredom, and you let each one ring through you without trying to grip the vibration or hide from the noise. By being hollow, in the sense of being free from the clutter of your own egoic demands, you become a vessel for a much larger music, a melody that connects you to the heartbeat of every living thing in this wide, beautiful universe. There was a disciple who once complained to a teacher that they felt as though they were living two lives, one that was spiritual and peaceful during meditation, and another that was stressed and reactive in the marketplace. The teacher told the disciple that there are not two lives, but only one, and the marketplace is the most sacred part of the temple, for it is the place where your peace is tested and your acceptance is made real. If you can only be at peace in the silence, then your peace is a fragile thing, like a glass flower that will shatter at the first touch of a real wind. But if you can find the center of the storm in the middle of the noise, if you can accept the shouting of the vendors and the pushing of the crowd as just more sounds in the great symphony, then your peace is like a mountain. The marketplace is not an obstacle to your path, it is the path itself, a training ground where you learn to keep your hands open and your heart soft even when the world is demanding and loud. When you stop separating your life into the sacred and the mundane, you find that every moment is an opportunity to practice the art of saying yes to the reality that is unfolding right in front of you. You might find that your mind is often a storyteller, creating elaborate dramas about why things are the way they are, and who is to blame for the discomfort you feel in your own skin. Acceptance is the act of listening to the storyteller without believing the story, recognizing that the words are just more ripples on the surface of the water, and they do not change the depth of the ocean beneath. You can let the story play out, you can acknowledge the emotions it brings, and you can stay rooted in the part of you that is the witness, the one who knows that the story is not the truth of who you are. This detachment is not an escape from life, but a way of engaging with it more fully, for when you are not lost in the drama, you can see the simple, direct needs of the situation and respond with a clarity that is truly effective. There was an old gardener who was known for growing the most beautiful roses in the province, and when people asked for his secret, he said that he spent just as much time tending to the soil and the compost as he did to the flowers. He accepted the decay and the waste as the very things that provided the energy for the beauty, and he did not turn his nose up at the smell of the fertilizer, for he knew that without it, the roses would be pale and weak. Your own life produces a lot of compost, the mistakes, the regrets, the moments of shame, and the experiences that you would rather forget or hide from the world. Acceptance is the wisdom of the gardener who knows how to use this compost, turning the heavy, dark matter of your past into the rich, fertile ground from which your future peace will grow. Nothing is ever truly wasted in the economy of the soul, and every difficult thing you have endured is a nutrient that is helping you to become a person of greater depth, greater kindness, and greater resilience. When you stop rejecting the smelly parts of your history, you find that you have a much larger energy available to you, for you are no longer using so much of your strength to keep the past buried in the dark. You bring it into the light, you let it break down into the soil of your understanding, and you watch as it fuels the blooming of a compassion that is wide enough to hold the whole world. As you walk through your days, notice the small things that you usually ignore, the way the light hits a puddle on the street, the sound of the wind in the wires, or the feeling of your feet making contact with the earth. These are the anchors of the present moment, the quiet reminders that you are part of a living, breathing reality that is far more complex and beautiful than anything your mind could ever imagine. By accepting these small details, you are practicing the humility of the soul, acknowledging that the world does not revolve around your preferences, but that you have a place within it that is perfect and secure. You are a note in a much larger song, a thread in a much larger tapestry, and your only job is to be the best note or the best thread you can be, exactly as you are right now. There is a profound relief in this realization, a sense that the weight of the world is not on your shoulders, and that you are being carried by a force that is ancient, intelligent, and infinitely kind. You can stop the frantic search for meaning and start noticing the meaning that is already present in the way a leaf falls or the way a stranger smiles at you in the crowd. Acceptance is the end of the war with yourself, the moment when you lay down your weapons and realize that the enemy you were fighting was only a shadow of your own fear. You are at peace, not because the world has stopped being a difficult place, but because you have found the place within yourself that is untouchable by the storm. Keep this peace in your heart like a small, steady flame, and let it light your way through the shadows and the sunshine alike, knowing that you are never alone and you are always exactly where you need to be. This steady flame within you does not flicker when the winds of change howl through the corridors of your life, for it is fueled by a source that is not dependent on the external conditions of the world. When you live from this centered awareness, you begin to see that even the most uncomfortable emotions are merely visitors who have come to teach you something about the boundaries of your own heart. There is a deep, quiet power in being able to say to a feeling of loneliness or a wave of anxiety, "I see you, and I allow you to be here," without needing to distract yourself or push the feeling into a dark corner. Acceptance is the soft, open space where these visitors can sit until they are ready to leave, and in that waiting, you discover that you are much larger than any single emotion could ever be. You are the vast, silent room, and the emotions are just children playing a game of hide and seek, sometimes noisy and sometimes quiet, but never able to damage the foundation of the house itself. There was once a monk who spent his life carving stones for the mountain paths, and he was asked how he chose which stones to keep and which ones to discard when the path became steep. He replied that he did not choose the stones, he listened to the mountain, and if a stone was jagged and sharp, he placed it where it would provide a firm grip for a traveler's foot in the mud. If a stone was smooth and flat, He placed it where a person might need a place to sit and catch their breath, seeing that every shape of stone had a perfect purpose if one only knew where to put it. He did not wish for all stones to be smooth, nor did he curse the sharp edges, for he knew that a path made only of smooth stones would be a dangerous, slippery slope in the rain. Your life is a path you are carving through the mountain of time, and the events that feel sharp and painful are often the very things that give you the grip you need to keep from falling when things get difficult. If you can accept the jagged stones of your experiences, you will find that they are not obstacles, but essential features of a journey that is safe, grounded, and deeply authentic. We often spend so much energy trying to polish our history, trying to make every memory look like a smooth, shiny marble, forgetting that a life without edges is a life without the character that makes us truly human. Acceptance is the wisdom to leave the edges as they are, to see the beauty in the grit and the utility in the struggle, trusting that the mountain of your life knows exactly what it is doing with you. The Buddha once spoke of the ocean's depth, how the deeper you go, the more the pressure of the surface disappears, replaced by a profound, enveloping stillness that is both heavy and light at the same time. When you practice the art of accepting the present moment, you are diving into the deep water of your own soul, leaving behind the choppy waves of the should-have-beens, and the what if it happens. In those depths, you find a silence that is not the absence of sound, but the presence of a complete and total belonging, a sense that you are woven into the very fabric of the universe itself. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth or to defend your position, for you have realized that the ocean does not need to justify its existence to the shore. You are enough, just as you are, in your successes and in your failures, in your clarity and in your confusion, for you are a manifestation of the same energy that moves the stars and grows the grass. Think of a tree that stands in a meadow throughout the year. It does not try to hold on to its leaves when the autumn chill arrives, nor does it try to force the blossoms to appear before the spring sun has warmed its bark. The tree understands the law of timing, the rhythm of letting go and the patience of waiting, and it does not feel diminished when its branches are bare against a gray, winter sky. Acceptance is your own internal winter, a time of stripping away the excess, of standing naked before the truth of your own being, and finding that your core is strong enough to survive the frost. When you stop fighting the winters of your life, you save the energy you will need for the blooming that is inevitably coming, for no season lasts forever, and the sun always returns to the silent, patient branches. There is a story of a merchant who traveled across the desert with a caravan, and one night, a great sandstorm arose, burying the tents and scattering the camels in the blinding, stinging dust. Instead of crying out in despair, the merchant sat with his back to the wind, wrapped his cloak tightly around him, and waited for the air to clear, knowing that the desert has its own laws and its own timing. When the storm passed, he did not waste time mourning the lost goods. He looked at the new shapes of the dunes and found a path that he had never seen before, a path that led to a hidden oasis. The storm had not destroyed his journey, it had simply changed the landscape, and by accepting the change, he discovered a source of water that saved his life and the lives of those who followed him. Your own sandstorms, the crises that seem to bury your plans and scatter your dreams, are often the very events that reveal the hidden oases of your soul, the places of deep refreshment that you would have never found on the old path. Acceptance is the cloak you wrap around yourself when the wind is high, the quiet waiting that allows the dust to settle so you can see the new horizon with eyes that are clear and unafraid. You might find that your mind is constantly comparing your life to the lives of others, looking at their gardens, and feeling that your own soil is too dry or your own flowers are too few. This comparison is a thief of peace, a shadow that blocks the light of your own unique blooming and makes you feel like a stranger in your own heart. Acceptance is the act of turning your gaze back to your own patch of earth, acknowledging the weeds, the stones, and the dry spots with a sense of curious, non-judgmental interest. When you stop looking over the fence, you find that your own garden has a subtle beauty that you had missed, a tiny sprout of resilience here, a quiet blossom of kindness there, and a deep, rich history in the soil itself. You are the only person who can tend to this specific garden, and when you accept that responsibility with a soft heart, you find a joy that is not dependent on being better than anyone else. The Buddha taught that the path to freedom is found in the middle of our ordinary lives, in the way we interact with our neighbors, the way we handle our money, and the way we respond to the simple, daily challenges of being a human being. Acceptance is the golden thread that runs through all these activities, turning the lead of a busy life into the gold of a spiritual practice that never ends and never tires. You don't need to be in a temple to be holy, and you don't need to be in a cave to be wise, you only need to be right here, with your heart open and your hands ready to serve the life that is moving through you. When you can see the sacred in the steam rising from a bowl of soup or the sound of the rain on the pavement, you have reached the summit of the mountain without ever having to leave your own home. This is the peace that the world cannot give and the world cannot take away, a peace that is as steady as the horizon and as vast as the light of the morning sun. As you go about the rest of your day, let this feeling of being at home stay with you, like a warm coat that protects you from the chill of the world's demands and the pressure of your own expectations. When you feel a moment of tension, simply stop, take a breath, and remember that you are the mountain, you are the ocean, and you are the tree that knows how to wait for the spring. There is nothing to fear, and there is nothing to fix, for the life that is breathing you is already perfect, already whole, and already in love with everything you are. Let the world be as it is, and let yourself be as you are, and in that simple, profound yes, find the key that opens every door and the light that dispels every shadow of doubt. You are a miracle in motion, a story that is being written by the hand of grace, and the more you accept the ink and the paper, the more beautiful the story becomes for everyone who reads it. Keep your heart wide, keep your eyes soft, and keep walking with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that the journey itself is the only destination that ever truly mattered. In the silence between your thoughts, listen for the whisper of the universe, the constant, loving reminder that you are held, you are safe, and you are exactly where you belong in this great, unfolding dance. The whisper of the universe often finds its way into the spaces where we have stopped trying to prove ourselves, acting as a gentle reminder that our true essence is not defined by the roles we play or the masks we wear to please the world. When you accept the quiet, unadorned parts of your soul, you discover a sense of integrity that does not need an audience or a round of applause to feel valid and strong. It is like a small candle burning in a window at night, it does not seek to outshine the stars or the moon, it simply provides a point of warmth and a light for the path of anyone who happens to be passing by in the dark. Acceptance is the decision to be that candle, to honor your own small, steady light without the burden of needing to be a blazing sun that consumes everything in its path. By accepting your own scale, your own limits, and your own humble place in the grand design, you find a freedom that the ambitious and the powerful often overlook in their frantic climb toward the peaks of worldly success. There is a story from the ancient texts about a gardener who was tasked with keeping the palace grounds, and he noticed that one of the stone fountains had a small crack through which water would slowly seep, dampening the earth around its base. For a long time, he felt a sense of failure, thinking he must repair the crack to keep the fountain perfect and the water contained as it was meant to be by the architect's design. However, one day he noticed that in the damp soil created by the leak, a cluster of rare, delicate wildflowers had begun to grow, flowers that could not survive anywhere else in the dry, manicured gardens of the king. He realized that the flaw in the fountain was actually a source of life, and that the beauty of the garden was increased not by fixing the crack, but by accepting the water's new and unintended direction. Your own life is full of these cracks, these places where things have not gone according to plan, where your heart has been broken or your spirit has been leaked out through the trials of your days. If you spend all your time trying to seal the cracks and return to a state of manufactured perfection, you will miss the wildflowers that are trying to bloom in the very places where you feel most vulnerable and broken. Acceptance is the wisdom to see the flowers instead of the leak, to understand that the imperfections of your journey are often the very conduits through which grace enters your world and the worlds of those around you. When you share your story, including the parts that are cracked and leaking, you give others the permission to accept their own flaws, creating a garden of collective healing where everyone can finally breathe and grow. The Buddha taught that the mind is like a wild horse that must be guided with a soft touch and a deep understanding of its nature, rather than with the whip of self-discipline or the spurs of self-hatred. When you practice acceptance, you are becoming a gentle rider, one who knows that the horse will sometimes be frightened, sometimes stubborn, and sometimes weary from the long miles of the road. You do not beat the horse for its fear, nor do you abandon it for its exhaustion. You sit with it, you speak to it with a kind voice, and you wait until the heart of the horse finds its own rhythm and its own courage once again. This internal kindness is the foundation of all lasting peace, for a mind that is at war with itself can never truly be a place of refuge for the soul or a light for the world. Think of a river that flows through a valley after a heavy rain, carrying with it the mud, the branches, and the debris of the high mountains, appearing dark and turbulent to those who stand on the bank. If you try to filter the water with your bare hands, you will only become exhausted and the water will remain cloudy, but if you let the river flow, the sediment will eventually settle of its own accord, and the water will become clear and sweet once more. Acceptance is the willingness to let the river of your mind flow through the turbulence, trusting that the clarity is not something you have to create, but something that reveals itself when the sediment of your resistance is allowed to rest. You do not need to fight your thoughts or scrub your emotions clean, you only need to be the space in which the river flows, knowing that the mud is a temporary condition and the water's true nature is always pure and life-giving. There was once a weaver in a distant village who was known for creating blankets that felt like a warm embrace, and when she was asked what her secret was, she said she never cut away the loose ends or the small knots that occurred during the weaving process. She tucked them into the fabric, seeing them as the evidence of the labor and the love that went into the work, and she found that these small imperfections made the blankets thicker and more durable over time. The blankets with the most knots were the ones that survived the coldest winters, for the knots held the threads together with a strength that a perfectly smooth fabric could never achieve. Your own life is a blanket that you are weaving for your soul, and every knot of sorrow, every loose end of disappointment, and every fraying edge of uncertainty is a part of the warmth you are creating. When you accept the knots, you find that your spirit becomes thicker, more resilient, and better able to protect you and others from the chill of a world that can sometimes be indifferent to our individual struggles. You stop wishing for a life that is as smooth as silk and start appreciating the rugged, textured beauty of a life that is made of real wool, real work, and real human experience. This shift in values is the mark of a heart that has found its home in the truth of acceptance, a heart that no longer fears the rough edges of reality but sees them as the very things that make life worth living. As you sit with these reflections, you might feel a quiet sense of homecoming, a realization that the peace you have been chasing is actually the ground you are already standing on. You don't need to climb a higher mountain or cross a wider sea to find the key to your happiness, for the key is already in your hand, disguised as the simple, honest reality of this very moment. When you stop running toward a better version of somewhere else, you find that here is full of hidden treasures, and that the people, the tasks, and the challenges of your current life are exactly what you need for your awakening. You look at your neighbor not as a competitor or a stranger, but as a fellow traveler who is also weaving their own blanket, also tending to their own cracked fountain, and also learning to ride their own wild horse. This shared humanity becomes the bridge that connects your heart to the rest of the world, dissolving the walls of isolation and replacing them with the warm, open fields of genuine community and belonging. Acceptance is the language of this community, a way of speaking and listening that does not require words, but is expressed in the way you hold space for another's pain and the way you celebrate another's joy as if it were your own. You become a person who is easy to be with, for you are no longer making demands on the world to be a certain way, and you are no longer asking others to be the source of your internal security. Your peace is your own, a gift you have found in the depths of your own acceptance, and because it is yours, you can give it away freely to everyone you meet without ever running dry. It is like a well that is fed by an underground spring. The more water you draw from it to quench the thirst of others, the more the spring flows to fill the well with fresh, cool water from the heart of the earth. This is the miracle of a heart that has learned to accept. It becomes a vessel that is never empty, a source of light that is never dim, and a point of stillness that is never shaken by the storms of the world. As you move through the final hours of your day, carry this sense of fullness with you, letting it be the quiet background music to every conversation and every task you perform. When you feel the urge to judge or the impulse to resist, simply touch the fabric of your blanket, feel the knots and the loose ends, and remember that they are the very things that make you warm and strong. You are a masterpiece of acceptance, a living testament to the power of a soul that has decided to say yes to the whole of life, without excluding any part of the light or any part of the shadow. Keep your heart open, keep your breath steady, and keep walking with the quiet, joyful knowledge that you are a part of a much larger story, a story that is being written with the ink of grace and the paper of the present moment. There is nothing to reach for, and there is nothing to run from, for you are already standing in the light, and the peace you seek is the very air that is currently filling your lungs and sustaining your life. The air you breathe carries the silent wisdom of every soul that has ever walked this earth, a gentle vibration that reminds you that your existence is a sacred link in an unbroken chain of life. When you fully accept this connection, the boundaries of the self begin to soften, and you no longer feel like a solitary island in a vast, cold ocean, but rather like a single drop that contains the essence of the entire sea. This realization is the ultimate anchor for a wandering heart, for it means that wherever you are, and whatever you are facing, you are surrounded by the familiar energy of home. There is an old story of a traveler who arrived at a crossroad and found a stone marked with the words, "Look beneath what you see," and instead of continuing his journey, he sat down to contemplate the ground beneath his feet. He began to notice that the dust was made of ancient mountains, the grass was drinking from the same clouds that had watered the earth for eons, and even the silence was filled with the echoes of the wind. He realized that he had spent his whole life looking for a destination, when the reality was that every step of the journey was already the place he was trying to reach. Acceptance is the moment you stop looking at the road as a means to an end and start seeing it as the very presence of life itself, moving through you and around you in a constant, beautiful flow. You might find that your mind still tries to build small fences around your joy, fearing that if you are too happy, the world will take it away, or that if you let down your guard, the pain will return. Acceptance is the courage to stand in the open field without fences, knowing that the sun and the rain are both visitors, and that neither of them has the power to change the fundamental vastness of the sky. When you are no vessel for fear, you become a sanctuary for peace, and you find that the world mirrors this openness back to you in ways that are both surprising and deeply moving. The Buddha often taught that the highest form of generosity is the gift of fearlessness, the ability to be a person who does not react with aggression or panic when the world is in a state of chaos. By accepting your own life, you are giving this gift to everyone you meet, for your calm presence acts as a silent invitation for them to set down their own weapons of resistance and breathe. You do not need to speak a single word to be a teacher of the Dharma, you only need to be a person who is at peace with the present moment, exactly as it is, without any conditions or hidden agendas. Your life becomes a living prayer, a testament to the fact that it is possible to be human and yet be free, to have scars and yet be whole, to walk through the fire and yet remain cool in the heart. Think of a bell that rings in the dawn. The sound does not ask the darkness to leave, it simply announces the arrival of the light, and in that announcement, the shadows naturally begin to fade. Be that bell, let your acceptance be the sound that rings through the corridors of your life, not by fighting the darkness, but by being so fully present in the light of your own awareness that the shadows no longer have a place to hide. As you conclude this time of reflection, feel the weight of your body, the rhythm of your heart, and the soft, steady flow of the life force that is currently sustaining your every cell. You are a miracle of existence, a unique expression of the infinite, and the peace you have been seeking is the very thing that is looking out through your own eyes. Smile at the mystery, bow to the struggle, and walk forward into the next moment with the quiet, joyful confidence of someone who has finally found the key to the kingdom of heaven. The door is open, the path is clear, and the world is waiting for the light that only you can bring, a light that is born from the simple, profound power of a heart that has learned to say, yes, this is enough.